Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace for Podcast at Ground Zero, episode 23, on the road again. Along tonight is our co-host, Adam Scott Glancy, and special co-host this week, Clint Staples.
Hey, everybody.
And Clint is a friend of the show, just a friend of ours in general. Clint dabbles in a lot of different things, so I'm actually going to let Clint talk for a moment, give him a little bio of him, real quick bio of himself, so people know where he's coming from. Clint, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I've managed to avoid having any sort of standard career. So I sculpt.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, sculpt miniatures, write game books. Write fiction, that sort of thing, take care of my family, all of that good stuff, and so that's my job.
And currently, aren't you working you've been working on a line of post-apocalyptic miniatures as well?
Slowly but surely, yeah. I'm also a gamer, so I like to GM. So I came up with a world based on a DARPA submission from about 5 years ago, and came up with a post-apocalyptic world called Robot Wasteland based on it. So I'm slowly building models of post-apocalyptic robots that have gone mad. And,
that's always a good start for any apocalypse.
So again, Clint is a friend of the show, friend of the apocalypse. Because he's right there with us. Clint's written for Scott. He worked on Mysteries of Mesoamerica.
And it only took 2 or 3 years to pay you. I can't remember, but it was. There was a reckoning. It just took forever. Welcome to gaming.
So he wrote for Pagan Publishing. He also writes for Skirmisher Publishing, yes. The Infinity Lives, who are friends Michael Vahorla and William Thrasher. So all around, and Clint is also from the Great White North. So he lives the apocalypse all the time. At least the white apocalypse. The winter apocalypse.
And I'm writing in a post-apocalyptic novel. So there.
Excellent.
See, he fits right in. And it's funny how he said, what you said about the work thing. So out of the three of us here, I'm the only one with a real job.
You mean you're a wage slave?
I have been working in the corporate world for over 10 years. So.
Yep. There you go.
It has its perks, but also. Every little piece of my soul dies every day going into the office. So
on the other hand, you'll pay off your mortgage before you die. So there's that.
There's that.
Well, first I got to get one. And I'll be 45 in about a month and a half, and I still don't have a mortgage. So I'll probably die before I pay off a mortgage. So
maybe that's a benefit.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Exactly. So, but I haven't had a mortgage. I have had a mortgage. I have owned property in the past. I did have a mortgage 14 years ago. I had a mortgage. So, but that
counts.
Yeah,
you're an adult now. That counts.
Yeah, I got my first mortgage when I was like 26, 27. So, and then when she left me, I wound up selling the house to her. Because I couldn't afford it. So.
I'm not sure that we want to hear the way that story turned out, because it does not sound like a happy ending.
It's whatever. It's a long time ago. But anyway, so on the road again. So this episode, we are not going to be talking about the Willie Nelson song, despite what everybody was probably hoping for. We are going to be talking about transportation in the apocalypse, conveyance. How are you going to get around when it all goes down? So we're going to talk about some of our favorite and classic modes of post-apocalyptic transportation from movies, TV, potentially books. Now we're going to talk about, the quote-unquote real world, what maybe we actually try to get around in when it all comes down. But first, we're going to do a couple things in the news. I don't have anything this week because I did some poking around and I didn't see anything. I'm sure there's plenty out there, but I was just being lazy. But Scott has a couple things to share.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I have come across 2 new post-apocalyptic updates. One of them is The Rover, which is a Guy Pearce film. And again, I would like to point out that the other guy who's in it with him is Robert Pattinson, who is from those shitty Twilight films. But,
oh, really?
Yeah, the kid in the car. The guy who's the basic plot of the film is it's some sort of almost apocalyptic Australia. It's like Australia in the Mad Max film, right? Shit's breaking down.
So it's Australia on a 9 to 5 bait.
Yeah, it's just basic Australia. Yeah,
it's Tuesday, Australia.
Yeah, we call it the apocalypse. They call it Wednesday.
Yeah.
Apparently the central government has finally been destroyed by funnel spiders and ringed octopuses and great white sharks and fucking saltwater crocodiles and every other horrible fucking thing they have in Australia that's there to kill you.
So this is a Sci-Fi Channel movie then.
Yeah, and we're now on this.
Hopefully it's better than that.
Yeah. But it looks beautiful. We have a new trailer for it. First trailer was a minute, 15 seconds. Didn't really tell you anything. The new trailer is like 2 minutes and maybe 30 seconds.
I have just posted it to the event page on the Facebook page, so if anybody wants to look at it there, I posted it there.
So, Guy Pearce is playing a guy who is down to his car and whatever possessions are in the car. And he's trying to make it, as sort of a fugitive or a refugee or something in this collapsing Australia. And some guys steal his car. And during the course of stealing his car, one of the guys gets shot and left behind, and that's Robert Pattinson. And his brother leaves him to die on the side of the road. He and his buddies take off in Guy Pearce's car. Well, apparently that's not good enough for Pearce, who saves the wounded guy's life for the purpose of beating the information about where did your brother go with my car out of him, and then takes him as a kind of a hostage on this cross-continental quest to get his shit back.
He must have really liked his shit.
Well, the line they're throwing up on the trailer is first of all they go right to William Butler Yeats, and if you want some poetic fucking apocalypse, what's the line? Things fall apart, the center cannot hold, pure anarchy is loosed upon the world, and what rough beast that's hour come round at last shuffles towards Bethlehem to be born. Well, the other line they keep throwing out is fear the man with nothing to lose. Whatever's in that car, whether it's pictures of his dead family or whatever, or it's actual material goods. Apparently, Guy Pearce is going to leave a trail of corpses until he gets his things back. And, Pattinson's along as a hostage, but it looks like, sort of the course of the film, he starts getting a little Stockholm syndrome-y, where he starts becoming more attached to the guy who's holding him hostage than the brother who left him to die. And it just looks incredibly ruthless and grim and dusty. And, again, Australia on a Wednesday. So it looks like it has some real promise. And it looks gorgeous. It absolutely looks gorgeous, as the trailer does.
Yeah, I looked at it. So I think it said it was, in theaters July, it looks like?
Yeah. Certainly that shot, I love that shot on the trailer with the cars rolling and you're bouncing around inside the car with the guys as it's,
well, what about this one at the beginning of the trailer where you see him in the room and all of a sudden you see something go past the windows? Like, was that a car? That was probably the car that was tumbling, Yeah,
well, that's the trick, is it looks like that vehicle that rolls is the car that the bandits climb out of and steal his car. Yeah. That's his introduction to these assholes. One of my favorite little moments is where the train's going by, hauling ore, and there's all these fucking kind of Blackwater armed guards on it. And they just have this look like, yeah, you come within 10 feet or 10 yards of the rail line, they're just going to shoot you.
They just have this dead look on their face, like,
shooting you would break up the ennui.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, please give us something to do.
Yeah, but that's going on. And the other thing is, sorry, Clint.
No, I was just going to say the apocalypse in Australia has got to be pretty damn grim if you think about it. I mean, 90% of the country is not far from unlivable now.
Yeah.
So, when everything falls apart and resources are even scarcer than they are now, it's going to get ugly really fast. Even by the standards of America, you've got some wasteland areas in the sort of western states where it's really hard to live. But for the most part, it's a pretty livable country. But that's not the case in Australia.
Yeah, on the coast, within 10 miles of the coast, you're not doing bad in Australia. You get much further than that, and it starts to get scary fast.
Well, the Aboriginals lived there inland, so before.
Yeah, yes, but apparently they're made out of beef jerky and anger. So I don't know. Well, that's not true though. They're very zen. It's beef jerky and zen.
Yeah, they did fine before the white man came. So
fucked everything up. So it looks like a whimper apocalypse. It doesn't look like we're talking bombs or war. It looks like
slow death.
We're running out of fuel. We're running out of food. We're running out of resources. We're fucking things up.
We're running out of care. We don't care.
Yeah. But the other thing that I want to throw out is this, which is How I Live Now. It was apparently made or directed by the same guy who did The Last King of Scotland. If you ever saw that with Forrest Whitaker being fucking Idi Amin. For How I Live Now is basically the idea is American girl goes to England. She's sent there by her parents. She's meeting family she hasn't met before. While she's in England, London is nuked. There is a nuclear, whether it's terrorism or attack, the Troll doesn't make it clear, but there is a nuclear attack on London. And from that point out, she and the people she's with are stuck between an increasingly fascist central authority and, anarchy. Just robbing and stealing. Some of the shots from it looked like it was its apocalypse looked almost as, at least if you look at the trailer online, there is a trailer for it. Some of their apocalypse looks as good as Children of Men, as far as some of the yuck that it's got. But it's called How I Live Now. It is, I'll say it's a kind of a girly apocalypse. We have a female protagonist. She is the central figure of it. And a lot of it revolves around her romantic attachment to her cousin, not her second cousin or third cousin or fourth cousin, but her cousin who she's never met, this English kid. It's based on a book that was like, when I was reading about this thing coming out, it's like, yeah, the book didn't shy away from the fact that it's her cousin, but the movie says cousin once and then just boom, just gets away from that as quickly as possible before it gets too six-toed inbred. But I'm not terribly worried about that aspect. I figure in any situation of stress and trauma and they're of the right age for each other, I suppose. And God knows, humanity got away with that for a long time. But How I Live Now is absolutely post-apocalypse, and I've got it right here. And the last one I want to mention is when I was at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, there's a film called The Sunderland Experiment. And it has a post-apocalyptic aspect to it. The Sunderland Experiment is made by these guys. You can check. You can find their website. They got a Facebook page. They got trailers up, and the basic idea is that yes, our world is fine. There's the world you and I live in, but off in this isolated desert corner of Southern California, there's this place with an electrical fence around it, and inside it, the community has been taken over for the last 10 years by some sort of intelligence, some sort of foreign alien intelligence, which is doing something to the town. I don't want to really throw out any spoilers. You won't be able to see it for a while. It was just at the film.
You don't want to throw out spoilers?
No, I really don't, because it's so good.
Oh, okay. It must be good.
It was the best thing I saw at the film festival. Now, the fact it was at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, that's kind of a spoiler right there. But I don't want to do the thing like where everybody ran up to my Facebook page and puked out every fucking spoiler for True Detective, and wreck it. It's really good, but the post-apocalyptic aspect of it is, it has that feeling. We were talking about a few weeks ago about post-apocalyptic dystopias, where you've got this place where civilization has crashed, and then there's this one little civilization where there's kind of a promise of 3 hots and a cot, and maybe you don't have to die in the desert of starvation and dehydration. But when you get inside this community, it's a fucking nightmare. That's what this is. It has that aspect. Like, you could imagine this place as something that you'd find in a post-apocalyptic setting, with these people inside it who have been raised in this environment where they don't even know what things are anymore, where words have been changed. So they're one of the most, and I guess I'll give this away. The word pregnancy is gone. Nobody's pregnant anymore. But no one's allowed to be pregnant. But women who become pregnant are declared guilty of making war. You have made war. The sentence is murder, and they kill them. And that whole thing where they've changed the words, so that people don't even know what to think anymore, was really interesting and really horrible, and really had a kind of a post-apocalyptic thing where, people lose knowledge, they lose connection with other populations, and they, devolve. That's sort of what's in an apocalyptic trope. That's all my apocalyptic news.
Oh, speaking of language, and the change of words, it reminds me of going back to when we were talking about threads. One of the listeners posted on the YouTube channel when we were talking about threads, because remember we mentioned about how the degradation of the language was. This was somebody from England, from the Sheffield area, and said, he's like, well, I remember growing up, actually, a lot of people said words like that already. So really, the way they were talking, because again, we're not from the Sheffield area of England, so we really don't know how the dialect is.
Okay.
We made assumptions that apparently it wasn't that far off. Because they were saying, like, get some. He says they talked like that. They do talk like that to an extent. So it wasn't that much of a stretch. I'm like, okay, well, that makes a little more sense, because it didn't make sense that all of a sudden the language is like, what? What is this? What is this? 1,000 years in the future or something?
Nobody speaks high English anymore. They speak.
Exactly. Well, I don't think they ever spoke in the first place. But But anyway, all right. So thank you, Scott, for sharing that. Now, post-apocalyptic vehicles. Let's kind of talk about some of the well-known things, and we're going to talk about, again, some of our favorite and most well-known post-apocalyptic vehicles. And I'm going to let Clint start. Out of all the post-apocalyptic, either movies or TVs or books, what is your favorite post-apocalyptic vehicle that you know of?
Well, maybe this is cheating. I'm not sure, but I guess partly because it's so over the top. But one of my favorites is the tank from Tank Girl.
Oh,
very good.
Way to not follow
it's
the
not
crowd.
Just a tank. It's a Winnebago with a gun on wheels, right? With she's got dealy boppers hanging from the outside of it. She's got fuzzy dice hanging on the inside and stuff like that. And she lives in the bloody tank as much as she lives anywhere else. And I kind of liked that that take on things, right? So that's probably my favorite.
In fact, I am attempting right now to pull up a shot of this thing. There's a couple of good shots.
Clint, are you talking from the movie or from the comic series?
More from the comic series, really. I mean, I saw the movie. I enjoyed the movie, but I read the comics first, and that's where I really enjoyed the whole thing. But I mean, it's still freaking awesome in the movie.
There I am attempting to show it, and if I'm not mistaken, that was a Stewart. But the chassis for this thing was one of those little Stewart tanks.
You got me.
But it's darn sexy.
Yep.
And it was even more. I'm sure it was even more crazy looking in the comic. You know.
Yes, yeah, it was. I mean, the whole I can't remember the artist's name right now, but the art style made the whole thing. The tracks were smaller than the body of the tank and stuff like that, and it was slightly cartoonified, and it really worked for me. So.
Well, again, very good for not going with the standard 5 answers. You know. So thank you, Clint. Scott, what is your favorite post-apocalyptic vehicle?
Oh, that's a tough one. Especially since after having been completely outclassed by Mr. Staples, I'm I'm hesitant to say the Landmaster because in a lot of ways the Landmaster is my favorite post-apocalyptic vehicle. Insofar, I mean, not the least of which because it was so iconic. It was the only thing worth it.
And for anybody who doesn't know, the Landmaster is from the Damnation Alley movie.
Yeah, let me see if I can pop up a lovely picture of the Landmaster here. There we go. There's a good shot of it. Let's go view image. In fact, there's Jan Michael Vincent sticking his head out of the top of it when he was still sober. I guess you guys can see that now.
Yep.
There's the Landmaster. Now, the thing that I feel stupid about is, Jared, do you remember who built the Landmaster? Have you done the research on that?
It's out there. I just don't remember off the top of my head who it is.
Okay. And it is still around. I want to point out that, let me just...
somebody owns it. They're trying to restore it. And it's funny was that even in the 80s, there was the couple of those Amoco commercials that they used the Landmaster in, like the mid to early 80s, so the Road Warrior.
Yep.
In fact, I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but that is actually the Landmaster with the accordion link between the two sections removed, and one of the Sandmen cars next to it from Logan's Run, the post-apocalyptic TV series, that turned up in the Tom Petty video. There was some Tom Petty video that the name of which is completely escaping me, but it showed up. So yeah,
you got lucky.
You got lucky. Yeah.
I think that's the name of the song.
So the Landmaster is still around, and let me go ahead and hit this. Here it is, sitting next to a Mercedes, so you can sort of get the scale of the son of a bitch. It's fucking huge. You gotta wait until the EM50 comes along for a post-apocalyptic ride that promised as much death and comfort in the same space. I really, because when it comes to post-apocalyptic rides, much like Tank Girl's Tank, everybody wants their crap. Everybody wants their supplies, their party, their group, to be all in one space. You want to be able to, we have this fantasy that it's, the Winnebago of death that you're going to cruise around the post-apocalyptic landscape in. And it's why the Landmaster gets the thumbs up over, say, the Lost of the V8 Interceptors. In that, it's harder to camp in that thing. There's not room for anybody. But then again, that was kind of Max's deal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He didn't want anybody with it.
No. So, so that's, the Landmaster, and then I would say my favorite, but again, it's hard for me to say this is my favorite because, I've never actually seen what it's supposed to look like because it's from a book. It is... only described, but it's hard to imagine what it really looked like. Was the War Wags from the Deathland series?
Oh yeah.
War Wag 1, War Wag 2. I would say that would be my favorites if, from a novel perspective, from not actually seeing what it actually looks like. So you don't really know except for what your mind makes it up from the brief descriptions. So I'm gonna have to go with something from the real world that we've actually can see. And of course, I am going to go with. I'm going to give the default answer. I am going to go with the Mad Max V8 Interceptor, because I've been in love with that fucking car from the day I saw it in the theaters in 1982. Love that
It,
car. Thought it was
I
badass.
I cried when it rolls over and burns. I cried like a bitch.
Absolutely, because you know me, I'm a little bit of a gearhead, so I like cars, I like fast cars, I like old cars, so I'm definitely gonna have to go with that for my
I'm
favorite.
gonna try and find a picture of it on. I mean, there's a few shots of it, but the problem
Oh,
is,
if they don't know what it looks like, then they need to stop watching. So,
but there's been these companies you were telling me about up here in the Pacific Northwest that build them.
well, no, it wasn't. I don't think they build them. I think there's a company in Australia that them. Now, mind you, this is research that's 10 years old. I don't know if they're still doing it, but there's enough of them out there I've seen out there because you see like apparently the Wasteland Weekend that they do out in the desert for the last few years now. There's like a bunch of Mad Max Falcons out there,
Yeah.
so somebody's redoing them. There was I remember years ago a company in Australia that was doing them and shipping them back. I mean, 10 years ago, they were like it was like $40,000-$50,000 to have that done. You know,
Yeah.
so it's probably even more now because again, things are more expensive, harder to get the parts,
And
harder
they
to
would
find
do
the
it.
cars.
They would do it, pre-max retrofit with the big tanks, or you could do it with the big tanks.
Either way that you wanted, you could do that.
Yep.
So. It's all right. So those are, folks. I guess one of some of our favorites. Then there's there's all these other, iconic post-apocalyptic vehicles out there. Like you said, we saw the picture of the vehicle, the Sandman vehicle from the Logan's Run TV series, which they got around in. There's also Arc 2, the vehicle from the TV show Arc 2. Which is a Saturday morning cartoon here in the States, or a live action show.
Yeah, live action show. Let me. I'm going to try and make those work too here. So let's go. View image. Let's try doing a little screen share on that. That's the front end of the Arc 2, right there, and it was built on a dump truck chassis, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it looks like it.
And here's some other shots of it. Let's go view image.
Yeah, it's been confused. It's been confused with the Landmaster, but it's not the same vehicle. It's all this scientific vehicle type thing. But also, I think they've also modeled some of the vehicles from the Mara Project game. You had the vehicles. Well, a lot of the vehicles they used were they used a lot of LAV 25s or Set LAV 75s for in the bolt holes, but then you also had like the Mars units and stuff, which had the giant.
Oh well, let me just show you this I found.
Transportation vehicles.
Let's go view image. There we go. Check this shit out, sir.
Okay.
There, from Mara Project. It's some of the scientific one, Mars one, and they even have the Landmaster.
Yep, of course. Well, it's it said it was a set a standard there. So, but so there's a lot of I'm trying to think. I mean, you see a lot of things like the Landmaster. What else? I said the Arc 2. We have the Tank Girl. What other iconic or well-known post-apocalyptic vehicles can we actually think of that people might recognize? I mean, do you have any other ones that you might be able to, off the top of your head, Clint, that you could think of?
Not named ones like the Landmaster or the Interceptor. I love the dune buggies and stuff that they had in the later Mad Max ones that were less car and more cobbled together framework with an engine and wheels.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously were not California Baja style dune buggies. These were X cars that someone had not even bothered to keep the fenders and hoods and chassis on for whatever reason. And I always thought that really sold the Mad Max universe for me.
Yeah, because as it like those later movies were further and further away from the event, so there's when they first happened, the cars are still intact, but I guess after a while, after crashes and this and that, just fuck it, just rip, don't even bother with it because it's not gonna last anyway, right?
Yeah, and I mean, get rid of the chassis and weld on some perforated steel plate for me and stuff like that. You know, give me a roll cage and that kind of stuff because it's not like I got a road anymore. You know, in the first movie there was a road to ride on, but in the second movie there's not much in the way of road. It's all driving across the desert and shit. So,
You know what we forgot about? Because it's kind of a rip-off of
Well, we haven't forgot. We're still moving along here.
yeah,
So.
is The Dead Reckoning.
Oh yeah, you're right. The Dead Reckoning from the Land of the Dead, the not so good Romero film.
Yeah, yeah. The Dead Reckoning, which was the big truck that had been retrofitted with, all the gear and rocket launchers and whatnot, and militarized, as it were.
That was a cool vehicle as well. But what was funny about that vehicle was, which I hated towards the end, like when everything was done, when they were leaving, remember they were shooting off the flares because like, oh, we're not going to need these anymore because apparently it became ineffective against the zombies, and it's like, well, that's the zombies by you. What about when you go 500, 1,000 miles away? Unless there's some kind of hive mind and they all, oh, nope, doesn't work in any zombies anymore, which is stupid.
Yeah, well, since the zombies are no longer directed by the flares, you mean the zombies in this 1 kilometer square area
that have been constantly exposed to them for a long time, whereas the other ones, guess what? They haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
well, zombies actually have memories longer than goldfish.
Yeah. I accepted that from Bub. Bub the zombie. I put up with that from Bub, but then when it starts coming into this thing where somehow the zombies are a metaphor for the third world being exploited, or we're taking their stuff, I'm like, really? Are they using their stuff? I mean,
yeah.
The idea that, you're coming into their towns and they're not doing anything except waiting for us so that they can eat us, and suddenly it's this metaphor for American imperialism. I'm like, no. Just didn't buy it, George. But there was the Dead Reckoning. It was, and I suppose in that same way we should throw up the truck from, well, we got a number of war trucks. We got the truck from Road Warrior from Mad Max 2, and we got the truck from the New Zealand movie, Warlords of the 21st Century, otherwise known as Battle Truck.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, with the big 50 caliber machine guns hanging off of it. Yep. Yes, and the big sound system built into it.
And wasn't there one with motorcycles? Was it oh God, what was it?
There's always motorcycles in the post-apocalypse, and that's a good point right there. As far as post-apocalyptic vehicles, a little two-stroke, two-cylinder motorcycle is a hell of a lot easier to maintain than a whole car.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people, but then you can't carry all your stuff. But you could be very mobile. You could get around, in and out of traffic, trees, things like that.
Traffic jams, off-road.
Yeah. So let's maybe go into that area now. Like what would we really be riding around in the apocalypse? Okay. Again, we all know everybody's going to want their cars, their trucks.
Probably a hearse. Oh, I have to throw out, this is for Mish McIntyre. If Mish McIntyre is watching this, I have to throw out her favorite post-apocalyptic vehicle, the white panel truck from Zack Snyder's Day of the Dead. When they, because there's a scene where they come up to the mall with that big white panel truck and back over the zombies, and it's just one splattered zombie head on the back of the truck after another. Every time the apocalypse comes up, Mish is like, are there going to be white panel trucks? That was her question about DayZ. Was, I'll play DayZ, but only if there's a white panel truck I can back over the zombies with. So don't forget the big white panel truck. And, of course, there were the post-apocalyptic vehicles that they made for getting out of the mall in the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Well, yeah. Well, you're always going to get, you're cobbled together. I mean, it depends on, a lot of it's going to depend on your scenario. It's like, is it zombies? Is it other people? People are going to, get your trucks, get your vehicles. You got to move stuff around. Are you going to find an old tank? Can you drive a tank? I mean, everybody's has its things, but I think one of the most overlooked, and I was just saying before the show, I was reading a couple of quick articles about that, and I was chatting with Clint earlier today over the computer, and he had brought up a point that I was going to bring up is bicycles.
Yeah.
Bicycles are very overlooked, So, and like Clint, so what is your thoughts on bicycles, and why do you think they're so overlooked in apocalyptic stories and stuff like that? But in the real world, it would be a practical means of transportation.
Because they are not sexy.
I think
they are just not sexy. You know what I'm saying? Like we were talking about Dies the Fire, the Sam Sterling series and stuff like that, and they're talking about in there these Scottish or resurrected Scottish longbow militia riding around on their bicycles, sniping at the SCA night bad guys in Washington and stuff like that. And I mean, I enjoyed some of those books, but I just have trouble seeing that in a film. I can gloss over it in a book. But I understand totally the practicality of it, and I would probably be on a bike if I was in that situation. But it just is not sexy in a film.
Yeah,
that is 100% true.
That's all
but in the real world, I think it is a practical means of transportation because eventually, fuel you're gonna run low on fuel. You're gonna run low on mechanical parts. You're gonna run low again, depending on your scenario. Was it a viral outbreak where you lost a lot of population? Are you going to have the skilled people to maintain your cars, the parts, the gas? Eventually, at the beginning, sure, you're going to siphon gas and this and that, but eventually, it's going to get sparse, and then you might get, like I said, the motorcycles because they get better gas mileage. But eventually, for everyday, easy to get around stuff, bicycles. There are. I was just reading some statistics on that. What did they say that every year there's like 11 to 14 million. What is it? In the United States, annual bicycle sales at the 20-inch wheel size and above run 11 to 14 million a year. There is a lot of fucking bicycles out there.
Yeah, and
you know what that means? A lot of replacement parts.
Yes.
Exactly.
And even if you're not finding, even if all those bicycles are no longer in working order, right? I mean, there's only so many things you can pull off of a car, and only for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even if you can find all the gas and stuff like that, where are you going to get fresh tires from?
Fresh lubricants, oil.
Fresh tires, fresh hoses, fresh oil, all that kind of stuff.
Transmission fluid.
Absolutely.
Spark plugs.
All that stuff. Whereas the complicated things on bicycles are gears, and all you have to do is find other bicycles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And I think the learning curve for bicycle repairman is sorry.
The bicycle repairman could be the guy you want to see post-apocalypse. I'm just saying.
Exactly, because the learning curve is, I think, a lot easier for that. Like, somebody could figure out how to replace a tire or change a wheel, even the gear. Like I said, some of the things I haven't done myself on a bike, but I'm mechanically inclined enough, I can figure it out. I know enough. I was like, okay, you know what? I haven't changed the gear sprocket, but you know what? I could figure it out. I haven't changed, the crank, the pedal crank in the center. But I could figure it out. I give him, brakes and cables and shit like that. There's a point where people might even use brakes. They'll use their feet. But the base structure and getting wheels on it and the pedal.
Not having any brakes on your bike is a hell of a lot different than not having any brakes on your fucking car.
On your car.
Even in the post-apocalypse, you got to stop.
You got to stop. Yep. So I think bicycles are very overlooked. Because what did the article said? Something was they're talking about people write these books about talking about like grannies, as one assumes that most of these authors are familiar with these things with their horse or procedures for building an engine that runs on ethanol. Perhaps rather than consulting their local resources, they could look at how people travel in poor countries where electricity and infrastructure are scant. Bicycles are more common than horse-drawn carriages. You look at a lot of these, smaller countries where bikes are everywhere.
Yep.
It is such a mainstream of transportation. Why would it not still be looked at? Yeah, you get your flat tires, but again, you could replace tires. You could find. I think there'd be enough replacement supplies for a while, but eventually, tubes are going to go. Rubber tires are going to wear out.
And what you're going to have is you're going to have people creating tires out of the materials that bike tires used to be made out of.
Yeah.
Some of the earliest ones were wooden wheels, sometimes with an iron rim on it. And does it suck? Yeah, but compared to a rubber tire, but it's still there's a energy efficiency. There is a mechanical advantage.
Oh, absolutely. And this article talks about again. There's one of these articles. I'll post this there, folks, too. They talk about the ratio of energy spending on walking. It's like you spend the same amount of energy riding a bike than walking, and you get that much farther.
And now we have in this country, we're developing. People are building those carriages for their kids on the backs of bikes, and cargo wagons for bikes. Those are there's a fair amount of those around. Plus, you could improv some of that. Building a cart that the bike could pull that wouldn't bang into the back of the bike when you put on the brakes. So it would have a firm lead.
You get your little red wagon, your radio flyer somehow, red wagon, and attach it to the back somehow.
Yeah. So the other things I want to say about bikes is it has shown up in a few things, and one I always remember is the stand.
Yes.
I don't remember if they did it in the movie as much. I think they did, but Glenn Bateman and Tom Cullen bike across America, and because they're on bikes, they get around the huge traffic jams. A lot of the destruction. Well, the one thing I want to point out about bikes, and it's something that your least favorite person mentioned in your least favorite book, is that the bicycle is the one vehicle you can pick up and carry.
Yep.
Yeah, when something goes wrong, the terrain's not cooperating, you can just carry your damn vehicle, or walk it, and there's not a lot of things you can do that with. And finally, the one thing I love about bikes is that back to Twilight 2000, my all-time favorite thing of all favorite things. No offense, Cthulhu, but Twilight 2000. There's a bit in the Free City of Krakow. One of the scenarios that the one city that has been spared, a military occupation or a direct hit by nukes or airstrikes, the city of Krakow down the Vistula River, and they've got factories going that are producing new goods. And one of the things that they're selling for trade is bicycles. They're manufacturing bicycles out of, because they got something that'll push out those tubes, those steel tubes, and weld them into the right shapes. And bicycles are a huge trade item, or at least, I love the idea that the players are seeing people, tootling along, on foot, and then later they're seeing an ox-drawn wagon filled with bicycles, where somebody's bringing these things out of the city that they're making stuff. But the bicycle seemed like the perfect, you don't have to feed it. It doesn't require water like a horse. It doesn't require special training. It won't kick you in the head and kill you. It's not skittish. It doesn't go into heat, and as long as you've got calories, it's got fuel.
And in fact, it's a power takeoff device, right? In the same way that you can use a horse to do what a man can do on a treadmill or something like that, to power a grain mill or something like that, or even turn a dynamo and produce electricity, you can, just like Gilligan's Island, you can hook up your bicycle, right?
Yeah.
And you put enough of those bicycles together, and you can do electricity, you can grind grain, you can turn machinery. not in the same scale that you could using hydroelectric power by any stretch, but in a scale that might be very useful to a bunch of survivors in a post-apocalypse.
Yeah, when you need to recharge that car battery, you need to recharge that car battery.
Yep.
And that's all there is to it. So, that's that.
I think bikes are such an overlooked resource. Again, and I think Clint summed it up when it comes to movies and TVs. Bikes are not sexy. Therefore, they're not there. But they're everywhere. I have 2 down in my garage. Okay, there are bikes everywhere. It's and it's like let's see, I could. Since I can't drive my car because the power went out for whatever reason. Well, I could walk 20 miles to the next town. Or hey, you know what? I'm gonna take one of these bikes laying around. I'm gonna get there real quick. I'm gonna ride a fucking bike. I'm not gonna find a horse to do it because I don't know how to fucking ride a horse, and they're a lot more to maintain than
You can leave a bunch of bikes in a bike store for 20 years. Come in. And if you can pump the tires up with a manual pump, and if you can find some grease for the axles, you can probably still make it go. Even if it's not greased, it'll just be horrible and bad for the bike. But you can't leave the horses in a barn for 3 weeks, unwatered, unfed. They'll die.
Exactly.
And a bike doesn't have to like you.
No.
Right?
No.
Well, I don't know. I might beg to differ with that. I've had some bikes that didn't like me before and nothing but trouble. So
fair enough, but a bike won't kick you in the head.
Again, I'm going to disagree with you there because
bikes don't get twisted up intestines, go sick, require a vet. If they get shot with a bullet, there's a hole in the frame. I guess it's still going until the frame breaks.
All right, but let's move away from the practicality of the bicycle in the apocalypse. I want to talk with the little time we have left. I want to talk about cool shit, things to drive around in the apocalypse. The cool thing I want to drive around in, the giant frickin', the giant airport fire trucks. Those things are frickin' beasts.
Okay.
Hopefully, you only have about 6 miles to wherever you need to go.
Yeah, but they're good for the short. These big giant things.
They're awesome.
With these war cannons, they're big, they're hefty. Those are cool. Or cool to get one of those vehicles, like some of those vehicles, those special vehicles they make to go over that we're going over to the Middle East. Like a lot of those heavy.
There you go. It's the Buffalo ambush vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and put the screenshot up. There it is. There, our lovely model Vanna next to it. That could be War Wag 1, motherfucker. Look at that thing is that's a beast, and it's designed to have things blow up under it, and you're fine.
Oh yeah. Well, there's also some other vehicles. There's like this company that makes these buses and trucks and totally armors them out. And I can't remember the company who does it, but we get some badass heavy duty vehicles. I mean, because but here, what about let's talk about. Well, here's another cool vehicle. You can store a lot of stuff in it. It's heavily armored. It may stink like a motherfucker, but what about dump trucks? Garbage trucks. In
a pinch.
Oh yeah, I mean, how thick are the walls on garbage trucks? Man, you could hide in that thing and hide behind the thing and not get shot. They
are APCs for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Certainly the Twilight 2000 favorite, the Lav 25.
Lav 25. Those were also used in the Guardian series, the series of books, The Guardians from the 80s.
Hey, Clint. These miniatures you're working on. Are you working on any vehicle miniatures? Just out of curiosity, or have you done?
I have. Excuse me. No, I haven't so far. The miniatures that I've done so far have all been of robots, and the idea is that that the robots effectively took over. The DARPA proposal that I used as the basis of the game was this thing for these autonomous self-fueling robots that could basically take in fuel from the environment.
These aren't the flesh-eating robots I read about like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, flesh-eating robots.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
So
what we need.
I just took it, in the logical game extension of that, and I've got robots with chainsaw mouths and shit like that.
Well,
Uh,
So
you know,
it sounds like a lot of shit from like it sounds like the ABC Warriors from like 2000 AD almost.
I don't know what that is.
I'm sorry, 2000 AD was the English serial comic newspaper that's been coming out since like the 70s.
Okay.
Judge Dredd was from
Right.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
The ABC Warriors was one because they had like they didn't have Judge Dredd. They had Judge Dredd and Slain, the Stronium Dog. They had all these different stories within
Road
the
Trooper.
2000 AD comic. The ABC Warriors were this crew of robots in this future where there's a lot of robots. Apparently, it's like a robot world, and they had things like chainsaw mouths and crazy ass shit like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you know,
I've got them in my store in ArmorCast, but you can take a look at them and stuff.
what I like about just as an aside, and I'll get off of this, is I like the idea of doing the robots because there's a lot of post-apocalyptic miniatures out there, as far as human figures.
Yeah.
But what don't exist are the robots to kill and eat them. I mean,
Yeah.
so it makes perfect sense that you're not going to waste your time doing. Oh, look, another scavenger looking in the in the ruins. That's not the point. The point is more fucking robots.
Yeah. I don't have time to sculpt every figure that could exist for that. I'm just doing the ones that don't exist for it, if you know what I mean. So,
Yes, that's the exact right answer. That is the right answer. Other cool vehicles. I mean, obviously, one of the things I always find amusing is when they pretend that the EMP is going to knock out all of your OnStar and your high-tech recent vehicles. So clearly, the only vehicles that survive in the apocalypse are old school muscle cars.
Well, but that's bullshit too because even
yes, it is. But
there is electrical wiring in those as well, but it's a lot limited. So you could actually get those going again because there's actually, you know what? Now I don't have it. I have to dig it up. I'll have to try to find it for next show. I still have my American Survival Guide magazines I read in the mid to early '80s, and there was one with an advertisement for a system. This device that you could, like, if the EMP hits and your older cars from the 70s, that you could hook up to bypass all the burnout wiring to get the car to start and run again. Because all you really need is wiring going from the coil and the distributor, which creates the electricity that goes to the spark plug wires to the spark plug. Spark plugs cause the spark, which causes the fuel to ignite, which causes your cylinders to move. So you just really need wiring going there, and some kind of electrical wiring power going from the battery to the starter to crank the engine over. There's not a whole lot of wiring that you really need to have the car run. Do you need lights? Do you need speedometers, radios? No, you just need the engine to run. So you could probably make that happen. So them showing the old cars logically makes sense because you could probably rig that with some wiring that didn't get burnt out from EMP or anything,
I want to point out
what we're dealing with there is the sexy aspect again.
Yes,
right?
yes.
That's why the muscle cars survive, because if you're going to drive a post-apocalyptic car, it should be a 72 GTO, right?
I was just thinking that in Jericho it was a 69 Plymouth Roadrunner.
Yeah.
In black, because, it's in black. What other color could it possibly? Like they're going to be driving around, in a VW microbus. No.
Well, they might, but
they'd be solving crimes,
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Now that I think of it, the VW Bug turns up in Woody Allen's Sleeper.
Yes.
When they go in the cave and there's a 200-year-old Volkswagen and it starts up on the first try. My dad said he was in the theater watching that movie, and he said he could tell who the VW owners were because they all cheered when the VW turned on the first try. I was like, 6 guys just like, yes, goddamn right. And I'm just like, okay.
Well, but also from the VW frame and chassis, you had your California, the buggies, and Sandrails are all based off of that basic frame with the VW engine in the back.
Oh, and the armored attack vehicle that they make in Warlords of the 21st Century, it's a VW. it's a VW frame that he builds this little armored vehicle to take on the battle truck in.
Oh, speaking of which, there's a pair of brother inventors somewhere in the States that are making heavily armored tracked mini tanks. I kid you not. They're trying to sell to the government. I saw them on Netflix, and they're about the size of an off-road four-wheeler, like a sort of like the ride on four-wheelers, and but it's all heavily armored, and it looks wicked cool. It's got the sexy factor, no question, and it can stand up to 50 caliber rounds.
Oh, nice. Really?
And those exist today. Those exist today.
You know what won't stand up to 50 caliber rounds is those LAV 25s and M113 armored personnel carriers.
Yep.
You know, there's a lot of that stuff. Even the Bradley. Those fucking 50 caliber rounds will punch in one side, and if they don't leave the other side, they'll rattle around in there with the crew.
Yep.
So
there's also these. What have I seen? I think they have them more like in the north or cold weather. Is they have these conversions for like four-wheel trucks, like these these tread conversions. That like they replace the whole wheel, the wheel, like the wheel. They take that off and the drums and stuff, and they put like these tracks, like these little wheel, like these little. Each wheel is like this little triangular shaped track on there, so they could go over anything. So that would make a good looking to get yourself a nice big giant diesel powered Ford F-150, and each wheel is a mini fucking track. Oh, driving that thing around to be intimidating and sexy as hell, you know.
Well, there's a Canadian company that used to make those called Bombardier in Quebec. My wife's dad actually owned one of those in the 60s and 70s.
Oh, nice.
It's a big frickin' truck, and it's got skis in the front and tracks in the back. It's like a Skidoo on steroids.
Right.
It'll seat about 5 people.
But it's only good in the snow because you got the sled in the front, you know?
Yeah. But the thing is, you could... it wouldn't be that hard to put wheels on the front in place of those skis.
Yeah.
Right. Just like you can swap skis or wheels on an Otter aircraft or that kind of thing.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of things that would be cool. Like I said, I like the fire truck. You know, I mean, you get your deuce and a quarters, school buses, things like that.
It's tough to beat the deuce and a half. It really is.
Yeah, because that's a big sturdy honking just piece of metal that's designed to run.
Yeah, or those 5-ton trucks that are semi-amphibious that the Army has now that are so tall that they were all over New Orleans during Katrina because they could run through 4 or 5 feet of water.
What about hovercraft? Let's go. Let's get one of those let's get one of those Marine Corps hovercrafts. You know.
Yeah, that's fine until we were. Sounds like a bit of a maintenance hog to me.
Yeah.
You might get one trip out of it. Okay, well let's get something else now.
I'll drive it till it breaks, which will probably be like 1 fuel tank, and then I broke it.
If that
aircraft, right?
The what?
Hovercrafts and aircraft, dude. I don't think you're going to see any of those in the post-apocalypse, just because aircraft have enough trouble staying in the air now. So.
Yeah, right. Well, simple aircrafts, yes. Now, when it comes to things like, and they mentioned this in one of our favorite novels, The Eternity Road. It's because the book. I think what is the book, Scott? Was like about 150 years after.
No, it's much longer. I mean, I remember it being.
It was like 200. It wasn't much more than that, though.
I think it was. My recollection was it was. You know what? Let's just go ahead and hit the Wikipedia. My recollection was it was 1,000.
No. It wasn't that far.
Because there was such a huge bounce back from the population. But go ahead. You were saying.
One of the things they have is like they come across. Spoiler alert. They come across this old airfield, and it's just all these jets that are parked there. And they're no good, of course, because they've been sitting for too long. Because that's one thing I read about. They say that modern jet aircraft, like especially fighter jets, have to be maintained constantly. Because if you let them sit for 5 years, they're done. Because the wiring, the components are so sensitive and they're so volatile that they degrade in like no time, even if you're not using them.
According to Wikipedia, it's 1,700 years.
Oh, I didn't think it was that long.
Yeah.
And Wikipedia is always right, of course. But
yes, it is.
All right, but I could be wrong. It's longer, but yeah, jets. Yeah, you're definitely not going to see jets. They're not going to last very long. It's cool to think that some robber baron, who's taking over your area, somehow got a hold of an A-10 Warthog, and he's threatening the locals by driving and strafing. But you know what? Well, that might last for a little while if you could get somebody to fly one of those things. But
I keep thinking of two things when you say that. One is there was this I'm trying to remember what movie it was I was watching, but there was this thing about how this company was selling jet aircraft to these two rival tribes on this island, so as part of their deal to exploit the local resources. And they're like, really? So they're F-17 fighter jets, supersonic. Do we have a pilot training program? Oh no, sir, no, not at all. They just push them downhill at each other, and then they crash together at the bottom of the hill, which means we're guaranteed resales over and over and over again. It's like, oh, good, that's excellent.
Yeah, so they're not gonna, jets won't last. Aircraft are gonna degrade.
And the cavemen in Battlefield Earth, where the cavemen in Battlefield Earth go from cavemen who literally speak to each other by going, and then they're flying fucking Hawker Harrier jump jets before the end of the movie. Yay! That seems likely. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Scientology.
So there's a lot of vehicle. I mean,
we can't forget the auto gyro captain.
Oh, of course not. Well, again, that's a simple. Well, for an aircraft, there's not much to it. It's basically got a VW engine and the configuration for rudder and propeller. That's it. There's not a whole lot to it. There's not a lot of sophisticated electronics.
It is the motorcycle of airplanes.
It is. Yep. And motorcycles is something I've again it's a sexier bicycle, but I've always thought motorcycles not Harley Davidsons, not your fucking 1,600-pound giant fucking hogs that can only ride on the street. I'm talking like motocross, off-road off-road motorcycles. I think would be a fantastic apocalypse vehicle, especially like in a zombie scenario, because you have crowded roads. These things could go off-road, on-road. They could go in between tight spaces. I always thought indoors. I always thought motorcycles, you're not protected. Yeah, you can't carry a lot of shit, but you could get around. You could get around fast. You could get around a lot of things, and they're a lot easier to maintain. Well, if you know motorcycles, they're going to be a little bit. I would think theoretically they'd be a little bit easier to maintain than full-blown car. And again, you don't need as much fuel for them because they do get a lot better gas mileage. And mind you, your tank's only holding a couple of gallons, but
just a couple of days ago, I saw one of those Russian Urals with a sidecar.
Oh, you did? Yay!
Yes. With a sidecar, and I'm like, yeah, that's a Z-Day vehicle. You got to have the guy in the sidecar, right? Cover you
with the .30 caliber, but
I was going to say the Tommy gun from Dawn of the Dead, but that didn't work out so hot for that fella.
No. But yeah, well then also one more thing we'll touch on, because fuel. That's another thing that's your problem with your vehicles is fuel. I mean, do you start learning how to distill and make your own ethanol? Who's going to make gas when the gas starts running out? What are you going to run your vehicles on?
What was I watching where the problem was? I do know. It was actually Arc 2, where one of the problems was the local warlord was demanding a cut of everyone's harvest so he could make ethanol fuel to keep his vehicles going. And it was cutting into everyone's calories and starting to cause a famine. That's the problem with ethanol. You're trading food for go juice. You can't drink it after you've distilled it.
Well, that's the other thing too. Is I think the type of vehicles that will probably last longer, theoretically, I think would be more diesel-driven vehicles, because diesel engines are a lot hardier than your standard gasoline engines, and they could run on a little more diverse range of fuel. Like there's people who get scrap oil from restaurants and just filter it.
Glenn Callahan's brother drove around Portland for decades in a car that smelled like Indian restaurants because he'd go
and get the grease, and because it was a diesel engine. Diesel engines are a lot more diverse. They could run on all kinds of different fuels. So that I think whatever vehicle your post-apocalyptic vehicle you're going to have, if it's a car, you're probably going to be best suited to have like a diesel engine in it, because that's going to be the one that's probably going to, because there's also less moving parts.
I got to ask the question: is there such a thing as a diesel motorcycle?
Not that I'm aware.
Not that I'm aware of either, but hey, it's the apocalypse. We can make anything happen. So.
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, I know that if you want to travel in Latin America, you because most places down there don't have unleaded gasoline. If you want to travel and you want to rent something here and drive over the border, you really ought to rent something that runs on diesel, because they'll have diesel gas in the gas stations, but unleaded gasoline is rare the farther away you get from the border. But just again, I just wonder off the top of my head, okay, I realize diesel has a different kind of ignition system for the for the cylinders. Is it high enough power to? Does it have enough RPMs? Is it torque enough to be a diesel motorcycle? That sounds like a really strange creature, a diesel motorcycle.
Turbo diesel, yeah, there's some out there, it looks like, but it's not, it's not, I don't think there's any mass production ones from what I can see here. Real quick, so, yeah, and then also, hey, unless we get our cars running off of, like I said, wood gas, or steam-powered, get a little steam engine there, get driving those, your old beat-up station wagons, right?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to throw out, speaking of driving, is I posted to the Facebook page an article, from theweek.com. The title was, "If a Nuclear Bomb Exploded in Downtown Washington, What Would You Do?" And apparently it was supposed to link to something called the National Capital Region Key Response Planning Factors for the Aftermath of a Nuclear Terrorism. And it's a document it was prepared by the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, and was supposed to be on this Homeland Security website. But unfortunately, the link on the article is broken, and when I searched the Homeland Security website, I could not find it. But one of the things it threw out was that the worst thing you can do for your survival in the immediate aftermath of, say, a dirty bomb is to run out, get in your car, and try and leave the area. Because you're more likely to be exposed to fallout, you're more likely to be exposed to various kinds of panic and violence out there in the world as everybody flips out trying to get out of the area. It was interesting. Some of the things mentioned in the article were, stay put, find shelter, seal the place up as best you can, wait it out until wait the fallout out.
And wait till your neighbors come knocking down your door to shoot you and take your supplies.
Yeah, but the chances are that they all jumped in their cars and fled. And crammed every freeway, and created the world's biggest parking lot in the immediate aftermath. So
that's why you need a bicycle or a motorcycle to get around. Yay!
Yeah, yay! But I just wanted to throw that out. That apparently getting up and moving immediately is not your best option according to the study. But we'll have to track it down a little bit better and post it to the site. Post a link to the PDF.
So that's a good point to wrap it up, because that'll lead into next week's show. Next week, folks, we're going to talk about is titled "Gimme Shelter." We're going to talk about, besides traveling and getting around, you need a roof over your head. So
let's move on to that.
Next week we're going to talk about shelter and where are you gonna stake your home homestead at after the apocalypse. So, all right, folks. So this show, we covered a lot of ground. Some of our favorite vehicles, some of the iconic vehicles in the apocalypse. We tried to talk some practicality with vehicles. Was there any one best vehicle in the apocalypse? We're really not going to know until Ragnarok comes. So,
didn't we miss Ragnarok? Ragnarok came and went, didn't it?
Yeah, of course it did.
Yeah.
It was back in what, March, if I remember correctly, or February?
What I love is that nobody really got all excited about Ragnarok. Everyone got all excited about Mayans and their calendar, but nobody seemed to give a crap about.
I think I might have noted it on my Facebook page.
The Midgard serpent and Fenrir the wolf. None of that shit. No, nobody cared.
No, because it's not so interesting.
Vikings,
to the population.
Vikings get no respect.
They get absolutely none. So again, we're not really going to know what's going to be the best vehicles until it actually happens. So we'll go around real fast. Scott, any final thoughts?
No, I have talked way too much.
Clint, do you have any final thoughts? It doesn't have to pertain to what we talked about either. So
okay, loosely based pertaining to what we talked about. In the post-apocalyptic novel I'm writing, it's set in Manitoba, which is my stomping grounds, and it's set in a magical nuclear winter, as it were. And you were talking about Ragnarok. Well, this is post-Ragnarok. So my protagonist walks a lot, and then he finds a snowmobile, which is good for him here. Not so much where you guys live, maybe, but up here, snowmobile.
Well, now where I live, I live in the penis tip of the United States, so there's never any snow.
If he needs a snowmobile in Florida, the rest of us are dead.
Yeah.
There's no way we're fixing that problem. You're a Clint Sickle, I'm a Scott Sickle. That's it. We're not doing too good.
Yeah,
if he's tooling around the peninsula on a fucking snowmobile.
Well, you mean a jet ski? Oh yeah, we have jet skis. It's got plenty of those. It's got plenty of water.
We totally walked around things like a Waterworld and their post-apocalyptic vehicles, like the.
Yeah, his big boat. Oh yeah. Well,
I thought that was done on purpose. So.
I think subconsciously it was.
I honestly can't think of another water-based, vehicle. Post-apocalyptic thing besides that film. I mean, sure, there are a few boats that turn up, like in DEFCON 4. There's the boat they're going to escape in.
We forgot about the vehicle from DEFCON 4. I love this little frickin' shovel truck, that he used.
Oh yeah, yes, where he turned what was it, like a steam shovel?
Yeah, it wasn't
like a bulldozer.
It was like a bulldozer. He armored it and put this crazy screw thing on the front, to take down.
And yet, people have done that. We had a maniac go maniac in America with a bulldozer or an earth mover that he armored up and drove around town crushing cars and smashing people's businesses. Do you remember that? It was like...
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I saw that, the first thing I thought is, that looks like Maury Scheiken's, post-apocalyptic mobile from DEFCON 4. Okay, maybe he saw that movie, or maybe maniacs, think alike. I don't know.
Yeah, so I can't believe we forgot about that vehicle from DEFCON 4. I was thinking about it today to mention that. So
because one of the things I remember about that is when they're escaping, he's driving around the armored part, and there's the big scoop on the front that's like 6 feet.
And they're hiding in it. Yeah.
They're in it, shooting down, firing down out of this little armored steel, pillbox that they've got. Yes, I completely forgot about that.
So. All right, and then Clint, where can anybody find any of your works from? You have your own website, correct?
Yes, I have my own website, www.baylor.com, but I sell through armorcast.com. So I have a store at the Armorcast site for Baylor miniatures. So if you're looking for nasty robot miniatures, I have a few of them there, and at least in theory, we'll be expanding that range over time.
Nice, thank you, Clint.
We'll throw a link in below in the show notes.
Yeah,
sure. Thank you.
Wait, show notes. I'm so bad about that. I gave up even trying to pretend that I was going to do it. Well, I'll get a link up there. Well, folks, I have the link up there on the Facebook event page in Clint's bio. I have a link to his website there, so you can find it there. We'll get does your website link to the Armorcast site as well?
Yes.
To find it. Okay. All right, so that's up there, folks. All right, and I don't got any final thoughts for because we've talked too long as usual, but hey, you guys are used to it by now. So again, next week we will be talking about post-apocalyptic shelter. Where what's the best type of shelter? Is it a castle? Is it on the road in a tent? We'll talk about that at length next week. So, and we're actually doing it next week because because we had to skip a week because Scott was away at the film festival and he was really sick a week ago. So
yeah, this is me when I'm feeling better.
he's feeling better. So, but we're gonna go on track for next week as well. So we're gonna talk about shelters in the apocalypse. So for Clint Staples, Adam Scott Glancy, and Jared Wallace, this has been Podcast at Ground Zero. Thank you and good night.